Now, let's back to what we do. So always get back on track. And what does a therapist hope to achieve by self-disclosing? And that is very important. What is the purpose of doing that?
To say, I know with myself, a young married couple comes in for marriage counseling. They look at me, okay, my kids are all grown up, what do you know about modern day marriage or raising a family? Okay, I got a 5-year-old, 3-year-old. I've also leveled the playing field. Now, I'm not talking about book knowledge, I'm not talking about a previous generation. I'm talking about here and now, and that levels the field. And now it's okay, this guy knows what he's talking about because he's there.
So you are sharing.
Shared enough to know that I'm on the same plane.
Yeah.
And I'm going through what you're going through with your family. So now it's like commonality is, I got a voice.
So the client will say, now you understand how I feel, yeah. Right? And you had to make it short, right?
Yeah. But that even works with, got a couple, somebody coming in working with the children's aid. I've been through all that. So okay, I could tell them, okay, this is what you're asking for, this is what you need, this is what you have to do. Got to make sure you have this, ask them for this, because this is what they are having in their files, this is what you need to do. So I educate them on the questions you need to deal with.
So we are psychoeducational consultants.
Mm-hmm.
Any other? Before we start the APA guidelines, it's all in your book, and just highlight a few. See, psychologists are encouraged to recognize that as cultural beings, we may hold attitudes and beliefs that can detrimentally influence our perception and the interaction with individuals who are ethnically and racially different from ourselves. So APA, we have hundreds of thousands of members. And this year we're going to be in Denver, Colorado, August the 4th, I think, yeah, the first weekend of August. And it would be a good idea to register and join. All right. And the psychologists are encouraged to recognize the importance of multicultural sensitivity, responsiveness, knowledge, understanding about ethnically, racially different individuals. We emphasize that. So it's not just us, it is required by APA. And psychologists strive to apply culturally appropriate skills in clinical and other applied psychological practices. In other words, when you registered as a psychotherapist, psychologist, and you must know multicultural principles. What are the strategies? Is to increase your cultural awareness and knowledge. And this is why we give you articles to read, and also to commit an ongoing cultural self-exploration. And this is what the exercises that we do. Because even at different stages of life, your cultural sensitivity and cultural environment changes. And so you have to continue to say, why do I feel? You know, sometimes I still feel like I'm a kid, but I'm not a kid. And you have to start to learn how to be appropriate culturally. And develop effort and practice to change automatic positive in-group and out-group perceptions. What does that mean? Do you have an in-group? Yeah. Do you feel more comfortable with your own cultural group? We all do, don't we? Do we have the right to be with our in-group? We do. We need them. But also we could be incorporating the people from the outside too. And I find that this is very good with the meetup. You know, people just come in from all backgrounds. In our meetup, we have Jewish, we have Buddhists, we have atheists, we have Christians, we have, you know, Catholics, we have everything. So this is why you have to start in thinking about groups. And identity and challenge internalized area of power, privilege, and oppression. I think this is all our attitude, isn't it? We need to identify. I think that is identify. Okay, that's a typo. And increase the contact with culturally diverse individuals and social status. I find it is very difficult. As academic, you have the academic, society, academic group, and then sometimes when you go into the inner city and you kind of have a bit of a culture shock, and I'm sure we all have, finding it very different. And how many people they are living in the West Side? Okay, we talk about West Side academic and all this. And when they go to work in the East Side, all of a sudden they're shocked. These people have no clothes, no food, and it is so hard. I remember the first time when I just got my job and as a psychoeducational consultant, and I had an inner city school. And I'm supposed to do assessment and diagnose them and place them in, different programs. When I saw the kids, a little boy in grade 1 and said, "Oh, have you had your breakfast?" "No, I just woke my mother up." The mother had an addiction problem. Before the child went to school, he had to wake the mother up. "Did you have any breakfast?" "No." Okay, that's an inner city school. I talked to the principal. I find from different classes. He was not the only one. So I said to David, the principal, "Why don't we set up some breakfast for these kids? Without fuel, you cannot expect them to pay attention in class. You do not expect them to do the work. Let's set it all up." So we did. We set up breakfast. Even the director of education came one day. He was flipping pancakes. And then we started to collecting clothing and put it in the attic so that the kids, like socializing, you smell, you don't have nice clothes, and your parents are not helping you. We set up a shower. So that became new culture for that school. And it's still going on. You see, all you need is you see the need of the child and you know what they were deprived of, and you could take actions. And it is so important that we commit ourselves, to say, okay, how can we help? And the other strategies that APA suggested is to challenge the us and them into we. How often I say we made of the same substance, right? The different colors are different, practices, a different environment, even different height. We are made of the same stuff. We have the same emotions. We also have, of course, we modified because how we were brought up. But we really need to say it's not us and them. Even though you were from the same culture, you still have that kind of boundary. I remember when I see so many people coming in, from China, the first reaction is, "Oh, there are more of them." Lilian, they are not them, they are us, right? It is so hard, because this is natural, we have to accept that. We do have, because, you see, when I don't look at myself, I'm like everybody else, except other people point at me that you are different from me, right? And then expands your cultural horizons. How do you do that? You read textbooks, and also you watch foreign movies. My husband, I guess he subscribed to whatever it was, so he could watch Korean movies with subtitles, so you get to know, the culture. And there are also ancient Chinese films. I guess they are free. So they learn a little bit about the ancient Chinese culture, right? So that's why sensitize yourself with other culture and learn from it too. So it's, of course, if you can, you travel. I still just savoring my travel to Moscow. I thought, we talk about Russia. Well, when you get to Moscow, they treat you so well, and they have 5-star hotels, and they have all these goodies, and they give you the best thing, everything else, and they make your life good. And you go into Red Square, and you look at all the ornate, the gold pagoda, or whatever they call it, and then you go into the Kremlin, and you see the yard. They're just like ours, right? So by doing that, I have a lot of Russian friends, and they also fighting against poverty, against discrimination, against war, against everything. We are, if we don't connect, it has to be relationship. It's amazing. And one of the people who invited us and guided us actually took us to the airport early in the morning at 5 o'clock. She visited Washington, D.C., and she got all excited, and it was just amazing. They also are curious about our culture too. So I think, we really need to be sensitive to all the cultural differences. And also strategies to develop multicultural competence skills, unpack your invisible, unacknowledged area of privilege. I begin to think that way now. I thank God that I still have money to buy the food that I like, to have my stomach filled. It is really privilege, isn't it? And our children are very privileged. They got environment, they got, opportunity to study, and they develop their skills. How many children, how many young people, how many adults, they have the talents never discovered. And not only they were deprived, our society deprived too. But we're talking in broad terms. And we have our limitations, but it is good attitude to have. And conduct a critical power differential analysis. Yeah, we already analyze ourselves a lot, don't we? Yeah, and also we talk about, how do we model and how do we evaluate our skills, and also how do we do assessment? And especially people who have to do a diagnosis. And I find it was very difficult because the legislation say you must have this number of IQ in order to be da-da-da-da-da. But then people from different cultures, you cannot develop the intelligence score based on the North American norms. And using North American culturally appropriate develop assessment tools. So this is a thing that we really need to pay attention to. And now they say complete genograms and cultural genograms, both kinds. And have you ever, what a genogram is? Have you ever done one? Do you discover yourself by going through that? Okay, and also find training. This is the training ground that we have on cultural competence. And also, remember, we talk about ethno-cultural transference and counter-transference. when we're talking to everybody, your transference it triggers something in the back of your mind subconsciously, and then you react inappropriately. Or the client, projects something on you, like Freud, and then he would, overact and then react negatively or unprofitably. So this is why we've got to be ethno. In other words, in culture, we also have the same transformation and chain influences. And develop cross-cultural communication skills. That's a biggie. Any insight on that? How do you develop cross-cultural? Yes, Nellie?
The words we use, like instead of the jargon. Trying to see what language they use and then using that in terms of like explaining things or even when you're looking at stuff.
Do you have a form?
Language?
Yeah. Do you have a checklist or something?
No.
Do people like to use checklists? Is that a hindrance or is that...
A checklist for what it...
Yeah, about, like the cultural differences. That would be something you can develop. Don't you think that would be useful? That would be a good research, wouldn't it? Not offensive, and not in the sense that will kind of, probe into something. That might be an interesting thing, isn't it, when we are talking about the differences? Because we never realize how minute differences can trigger negative interaction. Because you don't know that person, that might be a trigger. Well, for the more senior population, maybe age is a trigger. I don't want to tell you how old I am, right? Because that means in North America, if you're old, you're useless, right? You have run out of usefulness, right? But in China, age is golden. You could tell people, I am such and such, you got to respect me. You see the differences? So it's minute, but it does make a difference in their culture. And they all respect older folks. You see, whatever you say, it's wisdom. Here, whatever old folks say, you don't understand. You're outdated. You're not my generation, right? So,
I think the media contributes a lot to that.
big time, isn't it? Yeah. So we worship youthfulness. Of course, youth is a time that you have your best energy, best creativity, but can we not develop that in other generations too? Why limit our brains? Now the brain science was saying we create brain cells, making new connections. We might be using different part of the brain, but it will still be alive. Isn't that good news? So that's why we have to keep up with this research and critically examine Western-based psychological paradigms for their relevance to cross-cultural diverse individuals, family, groups, and communities. That's a tall order, isn't it? But at least we're in the right path. At least this biggest psychological association recognizes. And then we talk about acknowledge acculturation, like what John Barry's talking about, the language, biculturation, spirituality. Now that we never talked about before, right? Where religion, and out of it, it's your own. But now spirituality has come to the fore. And racism, we address it. We talk about it, not hiding it. And oppression, discrimination, that's a very important variable in the treatment of very diverse clients. And also, Along with that, you got to expand your psychological intervention. How do we deal with it? That is where the rubber hits the road. When I go home, how am I going to live? How do I say to people who abuse me? How much could I gradually, how much change is profitable or get worse? So this is the thing that we need to be cautious and work to enhance cultural awareness and skills as you associate with your organization. In other words, we're not just doing it for ourselves. We're doing it to make our community better, and in turn. So that's all the slides that I have. Okay, this afternoon Paul's going to have a lecture, and all right, I guess we should close this, shall we? Yeah, okay, I'll just turn this off so that we can have a, yeah. Oh, the heat's gone. Okay, what do you think of the cultural self? Do you know your cultural self? And what self-disclosure is so powerful. What do we need to learn? And how do we do it? So 12 o'clock will be lunch, and we'll come back here and according to the schedule.